is there will be a third world war? This is the right question to ask after yesterday the New York Times announced that the Biden administration gave a possibility to Ukraine to use ATACMS missiles against Russia inside Russia. This is clearly an escalation or a counter escalation, but still, whatever we see, this is a clear breach of a red line set by Putin. In reality, we know that the front line is in very difficult or even dire situation. There is not enough supply of Western equipment. Ukrainian troops are slowly but going backwards, and the Russians are going ahead. Partially, we know this is part of the reason, but it is the cause of the Western powers. Europe and the US had not supplied enough weaponry to Ukraine. Why Russia? Because for Russia, the Ukrainian conflict is a key national interest, is shifted to a military economy. The US and the EU is strong in words and weak in actions. Now, maybe to change the situation, Biden has decided to allow Ukraine use missiles, American missiles, long-term missiles against Russia. The problem is that is a clear breach of a red line which was set by Putin. This year, September, when the issue first emerged, Putin made clear that he would respond, even would use nuclear weapons as a retaliation if American missiles is used against Russia and Russian territory. He clearly made his point. Ukraine unable to launch these missiles around without the involvement of American military machinery. I mean, Biden also knew this. I mean, back maybe 2 years ago, he made a speech in which he clearly signaled that he is aware of the fact that this would happen, this would mean a step towards World War III. Now he decided to overstep the red line set by Putin and set by himself. Clearly, we are a territory of sleepwalking into World War III. Do we? I mean, we have to look. Unfortunately, we have to be very clear. Unfortunately, politics is about primarily emotions, honor, prestige, and fear. These are irrational feelings. But we are so clever as human beings that even we are able to rationalize the pure irrationality. I mean, it is very clear. I mean, sorry to say this, but this is the truth. Kiev is a beautiful city. Ukrainians is like any nation, has the right to have their own nation state. Still, Kiev is not worse than the destruction of humanity. But we still could slip into a World War III driven by emotions, prestige, honor, and fear. I mean, we had one clear example, the breakout of World War I. There is a wonderful podcast series, The Rest of History, Tom Holland. In their very funny, British humorous way, they very palpably describe how the world, Europe, slipped into World War I, why nobody really wanted it. Nobody was really prepared to wage a world war, and each side hoped that the other side would in the last minute step back. But miscalculation, which is other keyword, plus emotional honor, prestige, fear, led to an unexpected and unwanted result: war. Everybody knew that it was a major mistake. In the moment of declaring the war, people were crying who made the decisions because they knew that they made a major fatal decisions, but the war went ahead. And after the First World War came the Second World War, which was a direct consequence of the First World War. Communism, hundreds of millions of people has died, and we are at the same stage. Sheer miscalculation, emotional feelings, could not sleepwalk is not good word, could lead us to a World War C. I mean, it's absolutely crazy to think, but we know that ATACMS won't change the course of the war. In one of his last press conferences, Austin clearly stated that a few missiles won't change the course of the war. We also know from various reports that Ukraine and the West has only a limited number of missiles at their commands, and there is no mass production of missiles, so it's unlikely that a few missiles would change the strategic balance between Ukraine and Russia. Of course, they will cause damage. They will kill people. They will drain the Russian budget by trying to make missile defense against the missiles. But they don't change the war. I mean, especially in a way how the permission was given to use these missiles in a very limited geographic sphere, and as I can figure out from the New York Times articles, mainly or possibly alone against the North Korean troops, which nobody has seen yet. Although there is always possibility, because I mean, war is like a marriage. You take two to have a marriage, and you need two to have a divorce, or sometimes three. And we have this situation also. There is not only the United States which is giving the permission to a limited use of its missiles. We don't know what will the response of the Russians, and we don't know what would the Ukrainian side do, and how the unexpected and uncalculated responses of these other two sides will affect the United States. And we could really slip into, by one step, the others do another unexpected step, which requires another step, and we are bum. We are at the end of the world. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, because we don't, I mean, the real question is why it was done now, the decision. I mean, now when it's clearly, we know that the change of the war won't be changed by these missiles alone. I mean, it's possibly that this whole thing is here because of the US internal politics. I mean, Biden and his party has lost the elections. Within 2 months, we will have a new president, Trump. Trump won the election with promise of peace and compromise. The only logical reason why Biden has decided to step after losing the elections, he just wants to set up a trap to Trump. I mean, what is the trap? It's clear. Once Trump would say, oh, we won't give the permission, or we revoke the decision of Biden, everybody would say he is a Russian agent. And this kind of replay of the 2016 theater, because it was without foundations, we know, theater of Russian agent, and damage or undermine the legitimacy and the presidency of the forthcoming next US president. Another side of the trap is that Trump, who wants to make peace, now have a very difficult situation, because he has to face a new step of escalation, which the Russian would give a response, and he has to solve a much more difficult issue than it was 2 days ago. I mean, Biden is a is a wonderful politician and unscrupulous political machine, and he just set up a trap to Trump. This is the real reason, I think. Now the real question is, would we have World War III? I hope not. I don't think that at this stage, given the limited number of the missiles and the possible limited damage they will cause, and the relentless success of Russian troops on the front line, so I don't think so. This alone, one or two missiles would lead us to World War III. I mean, let's hope that they have enough rationality. I mean, US is a military superpower with nuclear weapons. France also has nuclear weapons. Britain has also nuclear weapons, so it's very unlikely that Russia, in response to a limited damage, would engage in a nuclear wars against these nuclear superpowers. The most likely scenario is, unfortunately, the complete destruction of Ukraine. This will happen. I mean, it's very clear. I mean, even I think, we know that yesterday the Russians had a major missile and bomb attack against the energy grid of Ukraine. The Bloomberg reported that the damages were wide scale, and the Ukrainian side had to close down 9 of their atomic power plant in order to avoid the meltdown of their power plant because of the irregular electricity. So I guess now that this large-scale Russian attack was in reality a warning to the West and to the Ukrainian side. Be careful, because I have the power to destroy Ukraine. Maybe they won't use nuclear weapons. They just destroy the energy grid of Ukraine. I mean, look, we are in winter time. Winter is extremely cold in Ukraine. Once electric grid is destroyed, the Ukrainian cities are unable to live. I mean, within 1 or 2 days, millions of Ukrainians have to move towards Europe. And I don't expect the Russians will launch a nuclear war because of a few missiles. Neither I expect that the West would use nuclear weapons to stop the destruction of Ukrainian electrical grid and destruction of Ukraine. There will be a lot of articles. Putin is how mean, he's like Hitler, like Stalin. But we will stand like this. So what is the end? I mean, stop the craziness. Stop the useless escalation of the war, and stop provoking a new world war. The real issue is the NATO membership. I mean, look back to the history. Between 1990 and 2008, so there was 22 decades, and there were absolutely peaceful relationship with Russia and Europe, and there wasn't any conflict between the US and Russia. Even we know that when Putin came into power, he had pro-Western views. I mean, we have a video that he's playing on piano the Blueberry Hill. What is this not the admiration for the Western culture? In 2001, after the attack against the World Trade Center, he supported the American war against Afghanistan, and he allowed the American military trespass Russia. He was a pro-Western politician. Unfortunately, the second Bush administration is what is made the world unstable. The crazy idea of the US to dominate the world and to launch a new period of forever wars. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, and offering membership, NATO membership to Ukraine and and Georgia is what destabilized the world. I mean, however, we have to arrange the thing. It's very clear now that the best is the big powers. I mean, very nice, very sad to say this, but this is the reality. To a certain extent, agree on their own spheres of interest, and they don't try to change it by using force. We have to go back to the pre-2008 period. I mean, it was very clear. I mean, Burns, who is now the head of the CIA, at the time was the ambassador of the United States in Russia, and he said a clear telegram. The brightest red line is Ukraine, NATO membership for Ukraine. Don't do it because it would lead to war. We have now the war. Now the Biden administration is trying to step over, and again, a very clear, outlined, spoken Russian red line. Don't use American missiles against Russia itself. We are close to World War III, but we could change it. Trump knows what has to do. Seek a compromise, close down the war, and restore peaceful cooperation. I mean, this is the major interest of Europe also, which is short of energy, short of cheap energy. And because of this, Germany and the whole European manufacturing complex is in deep crisis. Stop the war, save Ukraine, be Ukraine like Austria was in between 1955 and 1990 or today, an impartial, neutral market economy, a bridge between East and West, and reduce tensions. The only way to reduce tension is to find common interest in cooperation. The only one common interest we might have is trade. Once Europe is dependent on Russian gas and natural resources, and Russia is dependent on European trade and European technology, there is no sense to wage war. Save we don't hurt each other by creating fear. And out of fear is coming aggression. And out of aggression is coming war. We have to stop this cycle and go back, dial back history, back to 2007, and avoid World War III. Stop the craziness. Thanks for your attention.